Hey, what's up, everybody? Marcos Viegas for Fight Up TV, powered by Stagefront VIP, being joined here with Eddie Hearn, who has a show happening this weekend in Monaco on DAZN. And Eddie, we'll touch on your show and a bunch of just happenings in the world of boxing. But first off, you're having this show in Monaco. It's been a long time since a show has been done in Monaco. I was in Monaco for Golovkin versus Murray, which seems like ages ago. But I'm glad there's shows back over there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we did 4 years on the spin and then COVID hit. So 2 years we were unable to come. And last year we were supposed to come, but the timings didn't work out for the show. And now we're back and we've got a great show, World Championship doubleheader on Saturday. And it's a pretty unique place. I think the Murray fight that you went to was in the arena. They switched it a couple of years ago back to the casino. And it's quite unique. I mean, it's a stunning ballroom with like chandeliers, but it's 300 people all in tuxedos drinking champagne with the high rollers and the royalty. So it's a different kind of look. Obviously, Cancun last week, Monaco this week. We're switching it up, but a great fight card. I'm really looking forward to it.
Geez, only 300 people. How much are those tickets, Eddie?
A lot of money. A lot of money.
Yeah. I would imagine so. That's the trip about. I remember going to the Monte Carlo, and it's a museum, and like for them to put a ring in there. Like I was even thinking about that. Like there's blood and saliva and sweat that goes all over the place during these fights. And I was just like, oh my God, they're going to ruin these art pieces here.
Yeah. It's a pretty plush room. And it is really unique. Like it's quite strange. And I said, the fighters really need to get themselves in that frame of mind, because when you walk out in a 10,000 arena, obviously your heart's beating through your chest and you're pumped. And good news for Joe Cordina is he's boxed here before, actually, about 3 years ago. So he's used to that environment. His opponent, Vasquez, is just so pumped. I think he could be fighting in the wilderness. He doesn't care. He's coming for the belts on Saturday. But, yeah, a tricky environment for the fighter to really switch on in. So they've got to be ready.
Yeah, the winner of this fight is going to fight Usyk Foster, correct?
I think more than likely. Usyk Foster, amazing fight last week in Cancun. 25 seconds left to win by stoppage, or he gets beat, and he does it. Stops Rocky Hernandez. And I think Joe Cordina, who I think is the best 130-pounder out there right now, wants to unify. He wants to try and pick up those other belts. And I think Foster would be up for that.
So I got to touch on a few things with you too, Eddie, in terms of fights in your stable coming up. I've been seeing some of the interviews. You're mentioning Benn versus Eubank. It's imminent.
I believe so, yeah. I mean, I think we still have to finalise the deal, but we're close. We're very deep in negotiations. I think you're going to see that fight in the UK in January. Massive fight. I mean, one of the biggest fights the country's ever seen. And it's been a long time coming. We wish it was sooner, but nearly there. And hopefully we can get that boxed off in the next few days.
Is there any way that fight doesn't happen given the whole UCAT situation with Conor?
No. We've spoken to the board legally. We know our position. He's not suspended, Conor Benn. So we'll make that fight and then apply for sanctioning from the British Boxing Board of Control. It's going to be in a big stadium over here. So, the only reason it doesn't happen at the moment is because we just can't finalise a deal. But so much money for both guys, so much bad blood. They want it bad, and hopefully we can kick it over the line. What
date in particular are you guys targeting or looking at
in
for
January?
For that?
Yeah, end of January.
End of January.
So 20th, 27th, somewhere around that date.
And what are like the finalists in terms of site?
So Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, which holds 80,000. That's got a roof, which is nice. Or Tottenham Hotspur, which holds more like 60,000, but doesn't have a roof. But they won't care, the British fight fans. They're crazy enough. So, yeah, it's likely Millennium Stadium or Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, I would imagine that's like a sigh of relief for the fans over there that this fight is landing over in the UK and not in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think it's like a big trend now, that these big fights seem to be deserting the UK. So we understand there's a lot of money around the world for boxing at the moment, but it'll be really sweet to be able to put a mega fight on in the UK.
So now turning to your star heavyweight, Anthony Joshua. I know... Man, where do I begin with all this? Because it all bleeds in. First off, let's take a time machine back to last weekend. I'm still having a very difficult time just kind of taking everything into what I saw and comprehending it. I'm just still like, WTF, like what the hell just happened?
Yeah. Same. I mean, I think Ngannou, I think everyone's talking about how bad Fury was, but you got to give props to Ngannou because he just obviously followed a game plan and Fury allowed him to do pretty much what he wanted in that fight. It was a bizarre performance. I felt Ngannou won the fight. When the final bell went, I was like, oh my God, he's just beaten Tyson Fury. Obviously, it went split the other way. Tyson was very lucky in that respect, but he just didn't look himself. I don't think his punch resistance the same. He looked afraid in the fight. I don't know whether that was just bad preparation or thinking about the Usyk fight. I'm sure there was a little bit of all of that, but it didn't bode very well for his future. I mean, look, I've always said that AJ knocks out Tyson Fury. People have called me mad. And now this week, people are believing me. But I guess until that fight's made, it's irrelevant anyway. But I was shocked by the fight, shocked by the performance. And, who knows what's next for everybody. I think really turned the heavyweight division on its head.
No, yeah, it did. And just, I don't know, like you mentioned, you got to give credit to Ngannou. He put in the work, but it's like, this was also his first fight. Like, it has to be more to do with Fury, though. No,
but I still think you got the MMA world now, Marcos, who think that Ngannou will beat every heavyweight on the planet. Like, I truly believe he could lose to any heavyweight on the planet. I'm not. You've got to force the fight against someone like that, someone that's not used to fighting 10 threes hard. And Fury just let him control the pace. And every time Ngannou looked like he was going to gas, Fury just let him breathe. So look. There's, again, the MMA world are telling me it's a 50-50 fight, him against Anthony Joshua. So my answer is yes, please, make that fight ASAP and, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I would imagine the reason why they're saying that, well, two reasons. One, he just went 10 rounds with the best heavyweight in the world, and he knocked him down and he hurt him like in the 8th round as well. And they look at Joshua's past performances, and this is, you've heard this, Eddie, there's always been a big criticism about AJ, his punch resistance, his chin, and they kind of do MMA math or boxing math.
But the thing is, Marcos, is like, if you look at the actual facts around that, when has AJ been in trouble in a fight? Like, he was in trouble against Klitschko. He got dropped with one of the biggest right hands I've ever seen and got up and stopped him, right? Then the Ruiz fight, obviously, he got dropped with the shot on the top of the head and was concussed and couldn't recover, got dropped a couple of times, never got knocked out or anything like that. But other than that, like, all right, maybe however many years ago it was now, 8 years ago against Dillian Whyte, where he traded left hooks and got buzzed. That was it. Didn't go down. Since then, he's been hit hard by Povetkin. He's gone 12 rounds twice with Usyk, never got dropped. The last round, maybe a little bit tired, but just on the ropes. But I don't see, anything that could suggest that AJ's punch resistance is poor. He's been in with a lot of big punchers. I think he's more cautious than he used to be because I don't think he used to know what he was doing when he was fighting. But, I think you look at the punch resistance of Tyson Fury. That was a left hook that landed on the shoulder and half of the blow landed on the side of the head. And he was hurt. And I don't think he really recovered from that knockdown either. So I think all these guys, these heavyweights, they can all punch. I don't think it's so much punch resistance, just getting hit. I think the good news for Fury is Usyk's not a puncher. So that's a good fight. And I'm sure he will be better going into that fight. But you just never know with Fury. Honestly, it wouldn't even surprise me if he retired. Now,
no. He said he wants to fight 10 more years, remember?
No. Yeah, but he said, and he also retired last year.
Yeah.
for 8 months, 9 months. So look, he's going to get a lot of criticism and he don't take the criticism well. He bans media outlets. He wouldn't come to the press conference after the fight. And I don't know, people talk about this fight for February. I'm not so sure.
It's signed.
Signed? Not if you retire from boxing, it's not. But I just think that, for him to take this fight in February, he's going to have to go back into camp in 4 weeks. Mentally, is he ready for that after the criticism he's going to face, etc.? I don't know. It's a fast turnaround.
Yeah, but when they're throwing 50 mil at you, I think
true.
you'll clear your head real quick, Eddie.
That's true.
Hey, like I had mentioned, there's a lot of options now for Ngannou, but there's a lot of talk that I guess combat sports fans in general want to see either Ngannou versus Wilder or Ngannou versus Joshua? Is there any serious talks that have taken place since the fight Saturday up until now to make a Joshua versus Ngannou fight?
Just a couple of messages from myself and the teams, just saying, look, if you want to consider it, I mean, look, we know financially it's huge, huge. So I've not even discussed it with AJ, but if I could make that fight for a lot of money, my recommendation to Anthony Joshua would be take the fight. You know, I don't see that as a tough fight for the money that would be involved in the fight. I think it puts him in a great position, like going in and stopping and beating Ngannou well after he just had that fight with Fury. So, yeah, look, AJ's desire is to fight and win the World Heavyweight Championship again. But as I said, if that fight materialized, I'd definitely be advising him to take it.
So he hasn't said anything to you about that, or you haven't spoken to him at all?
Nothing. No, not about that fight, no.
Why not?
He's just not like that. Like, he's just, you know, he'd never be one to phone me up and say, oh my God, have you seen Fury? He just sort of keeps himself to himself. I'm sure he watched it or caught up on it, and I'm sure he was in disbelief as well, but he's never been the guy to phone me and go, make that fight, give me that fight. Like, it's just like, let me know what you think's best for me. Speak to 258 of my team, and cool, I'll fight anyone. And if I went to him and said, look, this is the offer on the table, I think you should fight Ngannou, I'm sure he'd do it.
He's back in Texas training with Derek, right? He's in camp?
Yeah, he's in camp now.
Okay, which means then December, January for him, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, he would like to fight on December 23rd. Whether that's going to be possible or not, I'm not sure. But if not, it will be early mid-Jan.
Yeah, because it's November, the beginning of November now, for you guys to do a press conference, really push the fight.
7 weeks Saturday till December 23. So it's pretty tight.
Yeah, so if you had a bet on it, not likely then, December then.
I think more likely to go in January.
In January, okay. Is there a short list of opponents for him, Eddie?
Not really. I mean, a lot depends on the Ngannou conversations and what happens with the Wilder situation. But it'd be a guy from the top 15, you know, whether that's Hrgovic or Wallin or Caballero, just someone competitive, you know. I think he wanted activity. He wanted to fight 3 times in a year. So he's been nice and active, and he's been enjoying it.
Okay. Because, yeah, you know, I feel like this Wilder Joshua thing is just kind of going in circles. Like we keep hoping for it, and like nothing.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, look, we were a bit unlucky because we all had an offer from Saudi Arabia, which we all accepted, and they didn't come through with it. So we probably put all our eggs in one basket and maybe shouldn't have, but we'd done deals with them before. We expected it to go through. It didn't. Now, when that wasn't happening for January, we started looking at March and April, and there's lots of sites that we could go with that fight. You know, America, of course, Wembley. We've had a couple of conversations in the Middle East. I'm sure Saudi Arabia would look at that fight again. So that's been the frustration, but still a focus of ours to make that fight.
So there would be no chance then that it lands on the Fury Usyk card like they were discussing before?
Potentially. Yeah. If the offer was the same, no problem. We'd do that fight.
Okay. Just in general, Eddie, do you think boxing took a hit? The credibility of boxing and the boxers took a hit on last Saturday?
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that. Oh, Fury's let down boxing. I mean, look, if you're going to be part of those kind of fights and those kind of events, if it goes wrong, you've got to also understand it kills your legacy forever. You know, Fury, there is an argument that Fury's legacy could be he lost to a guy that's never boxed before. Whereas he is a generational great. You know, now, can he truly be a generational great to the likes of Ali and Lewis? And right now, absolutely not. If he goes and beats Usyk, maybe. But he's still got that night. You know, he's still got that night that's probably the night people will talk about forever. Pretty embarrassing, really. But if you play those games, you've got to take everything that comes with it. And, you know, I'm sure he'll be crying in his 20 or 30 million or whatever he made on Saturday night. But it is what it is. I don't necessarily think it's bad for boxing, but I think the casuals start to think, wow, what's going on there? This is mad. What? So can I get in a ring and have a go and beat him? I don't know.
You know, on my last 2 things with you, Eddie, one being, I guess, given how this played out with him and Ngannou, would you now favor Usyk in a fight against Fury, given how he looked?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I always favoured Usyk in Fury in that fight.
Oh, you did?
But I did, but only marginally. But look, Usyk's not a big puncher, so I think that's good news for Fury. But you don't know what this is going to do to his confidence. He might come back stronger. I mean, he's proved me wrong before. But I think Usyk's confidence after Saturday will go through the roof. Sitting there watching that ringside, he will just be thinking, I've got the absolute beating of you. And I think Usyk probably starts up as a slight favourite.
Yeah, that's nuts. We would have not been imagining that prior to last week, but we also wouldn't be saying, hey, you know, if I had a time machine and went, hey, Eddie, if Francis Ngannou knocked down Tyson Fury, heard him in the 8th round and got a split decision, you'd be like, you're mad, Marcos. Get out of my face.
100%. I expected it to be a mismatch, and fair play to Francis Ngannou.
No, totally, because yeah, I thought he wouldn't last more than 4 or 5 rounds, to be honest. On a final thing, Eddie, you know, I spoke to you this about before, but now it's like really official. Showtime's done. No more fights. The last pay-per-view will be Benavidez versus Andrade, and then one more card in Minneapolis with David Morrell. How would you eulogize the end of Showtime in your words, from your perspective?
Look, there's a lot of people celebrating the end of Showtime, right? Stephen Espinoza rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. I go the other way. I think it's bad for boxing. I think, you know, myself and Stephen have had our fallings out in the past, but I still think he's been a great ambassador for boxing, in the sense that, you know, I said 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Showtime will be out of boxing soon. Everyone laughed at me. And when they came back this year, with the great year they've had, people started playing my interview back saying, look at this guy, what a clown. I knew they weren't going to last in boxing. But Stephen was so stubborn, he was so competitive, that he really took it down to the last breath. And you have to respect him for that, because he loved the sport and he wanted it to work. But one of the problems with the sport, and particularly the business, is fighters are getting paid too much money in terms of their commercial value. And the business just isn't or wasn't working for Showtime. So I think it needs a little bit of a restructure around the sport, where the money's there for competitive fights, for big fights that draw and create interest. But the money shouldn't be there for fights that don't. And we've got to stop as a business just overpaying fighters to try and maneuver the stable or get one up on them. Or, you know, we've been guilty of it in the past with the Zone when we came into the marketplace. You know, we needed to make noise, and now we don't need to do that anymore. So I think that the business and the industry will readjust a little bit. But in terms of Showtime, you know, they were fantastic for boxing, great content over the years. And now they're done. You know, Stephen's out of boxing and Showtime are out of boxing. I don't celebrate it. I think it's a sad day, as was when HBO went out of boxing. But the sport is changing and evolving. Streaming is, as we made the decision a few years ago, we believe the future of live sport. And, you know, we'll continue to fly the flag for boxing on behalf of the fans and even Showtime, and try and make sure this sport remains great.
Yeah, some interesting times ahead, that's for sure. Eddie, as always, thank you for joining us. I appreciate the time. And just to make sure, you're calling Joshua over Ngannou in how many rounds?
I mean, I said 3, but let's just give it 6 just in case.
6 rounds. All right, because if it happens, people are going to go back to this interview.
No problem.
And if he goes over 6 rounds, they're going to come at you.
No problem.
All right, that was Eddie Hearn.
All right, mate.
This is Marcus Vegas. Appreciate it, Eddie.
Cheers. Bye.